Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Fine. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Happy Teacher's Day.
Oh, thank you.
Happy Teacher's Day.
Thank you. It's kind of weird this year anyway, you know? It feels weird. Yes, I can see that. I know I have read many things about how this year even parents have to be congratulated on this day, you know, because anybody who has a child in primary school is, I mean, as a parent is also working as a teacher. Yes, and it's interesting. So how are you? Fine? Just a second, that there are some more people here waiting. Okay, and I will record there, yes. So, you know that in fact today is not a working day for us teachers, but I mean, since we started so late with this subject, I thought that it was a pity to miss another class, okay? This is why I offered, yes, this is why I offered to have this class, even if it's a little earlier than usual, yes, but well, I can record the class and everybody can check it. Yes, I did ask the director of the institute because, I mean, we shouldn't be working. So I said, is it okay? And she said, what I told you in the message, that this class is optional, yes? So it's not that today I'm checking assistance or anything, because as it's not a working day, it's not obligatory, okay? But for all of you who can and are willing to like move a little forward, yes, let's do that, yeah? First of all, before I forget and we start like checking the classification of words and dealing a little bit with the classification of verbs in particular, I wanted to tell you, please, when you send writing as homework, yes, this week you don't have any writing, but next week you will have a piece of writing, do not send it as attachment, okay? Do not send it as attachment because it's a lot more complicated for me to correct, yes? Write it in the activity itself. If for you it's more comfortable first to write it in a Word document, for example, or in a Google Doc, well, it's okay, but then you copy and paste it, right? And you send it in the activity, not as an attachment. Well, and now, yes, classification of words. In the sentences that we have for today, most of the words are quite clear, I think. There are 2 or 3 that could be a little problematic, okay? So, the first sentence, if you have your work there, is he has already read that book, yes? Good. So, what is he?
Pronoun.
Fantastic, fantastic. No doubts there, right? He is always a pronoun. Has.
An auxiliary in this case.
Auxiliary.
Yes, remember that at this point we are just saying verb, okay? Then we will see what kind of verb. It is a verb, yes. Very good. Already?
Adverb.
Very good. Already is an adverb. Perfect, perfect. Read?
Verb.
Very good. That?
Pronoun, can it be?
Determiner.
Determiner.
Yes, in fact, it can be a determiner or an adjective.
Okay.
In many cases, on the one hand, the word that is potentially problematic because that can work as a pronoun, that can work as a conjunction, and that can work as an adjective, okay? So that is one of those words that we have to look at carefully and we have to see what function it has in the context. In this case, it's modifying the word book, therefore, it's an adjective. You can also say determiner. Yes, it's true. Demonstrative adjectives can be classified as determiners, right? Good. Not pronoun, because in this case, it's not replacing the book. You are mentioning the book and you're saying which book. Yes? Maybe if the paragraph continued and there was another sentence like he has already read that book, yeah, that was recommended by the teacher. That book, in that case that you're omitting the noun, yes, it would be a pronoun, okay? But if you have the noun there, it's not working as a pronoun. Remember that. Pronouns, because the same thing, the same doubt happened last class, yes? For you, when you have to determine between pronoun and noun, yes, the pronoun replaces the noun. If you have a pronoun, you're not going to have a noun next to the pronoun. Okay?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Now, the second sentence, I will send you, sorry, and book is
No.
noun. Very good, no problems there. Second sentence, I will send you a letter next week. I?
Pronoun.
Noun.
Fantastic. Will?
Verb.
Verb. Very good. Send?
Verb.
Verb. Very good. You?
Pronoun.
Pronoun again. A?
Determiner.
Determiner. Excellent. Letter?
Noun.
Very good.
Noun.
And what about next?
Adjective.
Preposition.
Determiner, right?
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the problematic words. Not a preposition. Not a preposition. Look at the function in the sentence. Whenever you have doubts, because it is true that there are many words that can have different functions, yes, they can be classified in different ways depending on the function in the sentence. What is next doing here in the sentence?
Modifying the word week.
Okay, so if it's modifying a noun, what is it?
An
An
adjective.
adjective.
An adjective.
An
Very good. An adjective. I insist. The same word could appear as an adverb, okay? But what you have to do when you classify words, yes, is look at the context. Remember that last class we mentioned the words that modify adjectives, the words that modify nouns are adjectives. And then we have adverbs, but what adverbs modify are not nouns. Adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yes. Sorry, all those of you who are with their cameras off, I mean, unless it is a technical difficulty that you have no camera or the camera is not working, if you just turned it off, please try to turn it on. It's highly preferable, okay? If I can see you, because I can see if you're nodding, if you look puzzled or whatever. Okay? And also it's interesting practice in case you are shy in front of the camera. You know that when at the end of the year you sit for final exams, if you don't have a camera, you cannot sit for the final exam. Okay? I don't know if you're aware of that fact. Okay, but for final exams, the camera is obligatory because otherwise I have no idea who is on the other side. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I know that many of us feel shy in front of the camera, but well, let's try to get like more used to it in this context that is more relaxed than an exam. Okay? Mm-hmm. And if you have technical difficulties, well, you have 3 months before final exams to solve the problem, but start thinking about that. Yeah? So we continue with the sentences. Well, week is, we already said?
A noun.
A noun, very good. Third sentence, it is true that he did it. What is it?
Pronoun.
A pronoun, excellent, yes. Very good. Is?
Verb.
Yes.
Adjective.
Very good. It's an adjective, yes, true is an adjective. That?
Conjunction.
Yes, very good. That, the same that appeared in the first sentence as an adjective is now appearing as a conjunction because here the function is different. Here it is combining, it is linking, thank you, 2 parts of the sentence, okay?
Yes.
One term that we are going to be using a lot is clause. Yes.
Mm.
When we pay attention to structure, we have to differentiate between phrases and clauses. A clause is a group of words where you have a subject and you have a verb. Okay? You have a subject and you have a verb. Sometimes you have sentence that is one clause, or sometimes in one sentence you have 2 or 3 or more clauses. Okay? Now, when you have a group of words, I don't know, when you say that book, for example, it's more than one word. That's why it's not just a word, yes, but it's not a clause because you don't have a verb there. So what you call it is a phrase. You have a group of words that has a specific function, okay? In this case, for example, don't worry, these are concepts that we are going to be mentioning almost every class, but for you to start getting used to them. In the case of that book, it is a phrase, not a word. You have 2 words, so it's already a phrase, and it's called a noun phrase because the most important word in that phrase is a noun, okay? Now, in the sentence that we are discussing now, it is true that he did it. How many clauses do you have in that sentence? If we think that a clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb. So?
2.
Two.
2.
Very good, very good. One is the whole thing. It is true that he did it. That's a clause, okay? But inside that clause, you have another one, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He did it. He did it. That's another clause, okay? So how can we link these two? We need a conjunction. In this case, that, okay?
Yes.
Very good. He,
Pronoun.
very good. Did,
Verb.
yes, and it,
Pronoun.
Pronoun.
fantastic, fantastic. No doubts there. And we go to the last sentence, which is a little long. Yes, she thought about herself and the incredibly long journey she had just had. Okay, what is she?
Pronoun.
Pronoun.
What is thought?
Verb.
Verb.
Very good. What is about?
Preposition.
Preposition.
Excellent, excellent. That's a preposition. Herself?
Pronoun.
Pronoun.
Very good. And?
Conjunction.
Conjunction.
Conjunction. For example, and is always a conjunction.
Mhm.
Or is always a conjunction. Yes? This could be something useful depending on your learning styles. Yes? This is something that, well, now as you are studying, you have to figure out what are the strategies that help you better to study, to understand, and to remember information. But one option could be start making a list. There are words that always have the same function. Okay?
Mhm.
So about those words, you cannot have any doubts. Now, then you could have a separate list with words that can have more than one function, and you can start writing down the different functions and different examples. Okay? This is just a suggestion of how to start organizing the information, right? So, the
Determiner.
Determiner.
very good, it's a determiner. Incredibly,
Adverb. Verb.
very good. What is incredibly modifying here?
The adjective.
Very good, very good. It's not modifying the noun, it's modifying the adjective. It's modifying what word?
Long.
Long. Very good, and long is an adjective. And what is long modifying?
Journey.
A noun.
What noun?
Journey.
Journey. Fantastic, fantastic. She,
Pronoun.
noun, excellent. Had,
Verb.
Verb.
perfect. Just,
Adverb.
Adverb.
perfect. And had,
Verb.
Verb.
very good, very good. So what is the only type of word? Remember that we said that there are 9 kinds of words. In these 4 sentences, all of them appear except one. There is one type of word that did not appear.
Intersections.
Excellent, excellent. Interjections like, oh, ouch.
Mm.
Yeah, words like that.
Yes.
Yes. All the others appeared at least once. Very good, very good. Now, this is something, this classification of words, we are going to practice. I already wrote in the class for today a few more sentences, but in those sentences, you're going to classify the type of words, and we are going to start paying attention to the verbs, okay? So, as regards verbs, let me explain to you a little the material that you have, okay? Because the explanations were quite clear. The examples, if you look at the analysis, some things were clear and some other things were not clear for someone who is not used to doing syntactic analysis. So, on the one hand, we have to think that we have three types of verbs. We have the full lexical verbs, we have the auxiliaries, and we have the semi-auxiliaries, okay? Honestly, the most important difference we need is between full lexical verb and the others. It's a lot better if you can differentiate between auxiliaries and semi-auxiliaries, of course, but the distinction you must be able to make, yes or yes, is what is the full lexical verb of the sentence and what is the auxiliary or semi-auxiliary, okay? So, first I'm going to mention some brief things about auxiliary and semi-auxiliary verbs, and then we are going to discuss in more detail and with examples the full lexical verbs, okay? Because those are the ones that we are going to have to analyze carefully to be able to understand the structure of the sentence and to start doing our syntactic analysis. As regards auxiliaries, well, you know that you have be, have, modal verbs are among the auxiliaries, and then you have the ones that are called the empty carriers, okay? Do, did, okay? That the only thing that they do in a sentence is to show the verbal tense, yeah? Do you like grammar? What is do? It's an auxiliary and it's an empty carrier, exactly. I mean, you don't need to remember this classification inside the auxiliaries. The classification there or the enumeration is for you to be able to identify them more clearly. You know that you have the verb to be, you have the verb have, which sometimes is an empty carrier. In the present perfect, it is an empty carrier, yes? Then you have the modals, and then you have the empty carriers, okay? So those are the auxiliaries. Then among the semi-auxiliaries, you have the semi-modals. Just a second, there, yes. You have the semi-modals, okay? That are the ones that show feelings, okay? You have, in grammar, when you are saying this about showing feelings, you call that mood. You show the mood of the sentence, okay? So you have words like want to, prefer to, try to, etc. Remember that these verbs usually appear together with another verb. But let me explain one thing about, for example, the verb want, okay? Because if I say, I want a cup of coffee, I want a cup of coffee, can want be a semi-auxiliary verb? Do you think that you can have a sentence without a full lexical verb? I will ask, can you have a sentence that doesn't have a full lexical verb? No, let me answer that. No, as a rule, in a sentence, you must have at least one full lexical verb. Okay, so if I say, I want a cup of coffee, want is a full lexical verb. Now, want would be classified differently if it is followed by another verb. I want to go out, something that many of us are feeling, right? I want to go out. There, to go, yes, go out, that is the main verb, the full lexical verb, okay? And want is a semi-auxiliary that is showing mood, is showing the feelings of the person who is speaking. Okay? So, want, this is just to mention an example, yes? Want can work as a full lexical verb or as a semi-auxiliary verb, depending on what follows it. If what follows is a noun or a noun phrase, then it's a full lexical verb. Now, if it is followed by another verb, the other verb is a full lexical verb and want is a semi-auxiliary. Okay?
Okay.
Great. Remember anyway that when we are talking just like all this theory, maybe there are things that you understand, but you don't have this feeling like, yes, I fully understand. That feeling of fully understanding will come with practice. Okay? So then I'm going to give you some examples to analyze together, and then for next week, I already wrote a few sentences for you to start analyzing. Okay? And there, when you have to analyze, a lot of questions will come to your mind. Okay? When those questions come to your mind, write them down so that then in the class, we can discuss them. Okay? Great. So, and the other type of semi-auxiliary are the aspectual, okay? The ones that show aspect. Aspect in the world of grammar, yes, is whether something is like you're showing the part of the process, if it's the beginning, the middle, or the end. Okay? Aspect has other meanings, but in the grammatical context, in the grammatical world, it has that meaning. So when you say start, finish, go on, continue, again, those are semi-auxiliaries. Okay, I'm going to continue explaining. Explaining is the full lexical verb, and continue is a semi-auxiliary that is showing aspect. Okay, so far so good?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so as regards the full lexical verbs, we can classify them mainly into, because you have full lexical verbs, and remember that then there is this explanation of prepositional verbs and phrasal verbs. That in today's class, I want to focus more on something else. That is the classification we make of these full lexical verbs into. First, I'm going to mention them, and then I'm going to exemplify them. On the one hand, you have to classify the verbs into transitive or intransitive. And then each one of those, transitive and intransitive, can be of complete or incomplete predication. And there is one fifth category that is ditransitive, or also called bitransitive verbs. Yes, in the notes they appear as ditransitive, yes, DI, but they can also be called bitransitive, okay? That are the verbs that take two objects, a direct object and an indirect object. So I'm going to read a sentence, and we're going to analyze which kind of verb it is and why, okay? To see if you can identify it. Sorry, first, before we do that, I will explain the most important difference between a complement and an object, because, otherwise, how can you tell if it's like what you have after the verb is a complement or a direct object, for example? By definition, the object is something or someone that is affected by the action of the verb, okay? So, for example, in the sentence, he broke the window was affected by the action of breaking, okay?
Okay.
Complements, as the name suggests, complete the meaning of the verb, because the verb is incomplete without a complement. But it's not that the complement is affected by the action. There is no action, and the complement is just providing the information that is missing. The most famous intransitive verb of incomplete predication is the verb to be. You cannot have a sentence saying, I am. I am what? That sentence is not complete. But when I say, I am Sarah, Sarah is not something affected by am, no. Sarah is completing the meaning so that the sentence makes sense, okay? Good. So, in the sentence, I studied until very late. I studied until very late. What is the verb?
Studied.
Studied. Very good. Do you have an object there, something that is affected by the action of studying? No.
No.
No. And if there is no object or person affected by the action of the verb, then the verb is intransitive. Okay? Intransitive. It is an intransitive verb. Now, if I say I studied, can I make a sentence like that? I studied.
It's incomplete.
Why?
No, why?
But have the sense.
If I say I studied, can you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, it's complete.
Very good. Until very late is an adverb of time. Yes? I'm telling you more or less, but it's not essential. The sentence can be, finished in I studied. Therefore, we already say that it's an intransitive verb because it doesn't take an object. It is an intransitive verb of complete predication because it doesn't need something to complete its meaning. Okay?
Yes.
It's not conclusive either, is it correct? It's just, it drives you toward a conclusion, but it's not conclusive in itself, saying I study until very late. Is there any...
What do you mean that it's not conclusive in itself?
Because, you said you studied and you're adding the not fully necessary part of until very late.
Okay, so what
but
you are...
not, it's not the conclusion.
It's extra information. It is not essential to the sentence. Adverbs,
Exactly.
in general, adverbs, yes, include information that is not essential. The essential elements of the sentence are always the subject, yes or yes, the verb, and depending on the characteristics of the verb, I will need a direct object or a direct and an indirect object, and I may need a complement. That depends on the verb. Each verb has its own characteristics depending on the meaning, okay? Now, adverbs are extra information. They are not part of the essential structure of the sentence. I remember that last class when I gave you some feedback on the writings that I have been correcting, I told you that one of the most important aspects to improve is punctuation. Yes? And we said, and this is very important, we need to identify these essential elements of the sentence because the essential elements of the sentence cannot be separated with a comma. Okay? The essential elements of the sentence have to be all in one continuum. You could have something between commas. As, I don't know, if you say, for example, Mary, who is my neighbor, studied late until last night. Yes? So in that case, you have something between commas that is adding extra information about the subject, right? But I'm not...
Like not defining clause.
Exactly, but non-defining, it is adding extra information. So it's not that I have one comma between the subject and the verb. I have something between commas, okay? Very good. Now, another verb. If I say, she wrote a letter last night. She wrote a letter last night. What is the verb?
Wrote.
Very good.
Wrote.
Could I say she wrote?
No.
Is there anything or anyone that is affected by the verb of writing?
The letter.
The letter. The letter is an object that is affected. In fact, it is created by the action itself. So, as it is something affected by the verb, we call that a direct object. Okay? So, if we have a direct object, are we talking about a transitive or intransitive verb?
Transitive.
Transitive, very good. Now, could I just say she wrote a letter?
Yes.
Yes. So it is a transitive verb, but it is a transitive verb of complete predication, because with the object, then the sentence is complete. I don't need anything else. So it's a transitive verb of complete predication. The verb only takes a direct object. Another sentence. He was a famous writer. He was a famous writer. What is the verb?
Was.
Was.
Very good. Can I say he was?
No.
No.
No. But is a famous writer a person affected by the verb? By the action of the verb? No.
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 What is it?
A complement.
A complement. I need that information for the sentence to make any sense. Okay? So we are talking of a verb of incomplete predication.
Mm-hmm.
And is there an object affected by an action here?
No.
No.
No. So it is an intransitive verb of incomplete predication. It doesn't take an object, but it does take a complement. These verbs that are these intransitive verbs of incomplete predication, apart from the most famous, that is a verb to be, you have verbs of appearance. She looks sad, she looks happy, she looks what? Okay? You seem what? Okay? So verbs of appearances, verbs connected with the senses. Yes, it smells delicious in here. Yes, it smells what? And verbs of process, like become. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
The caterpillar became a butterfly. The caterpillar became. No, that is not complete. Santiago is asking when the verb needs a complement. Yes, when the verb needs a complement, then it is a verb of incomplete predication. Yes. Okay? So the verbs that here you have like a list of verbs. You have the verb to be, then verbs of appearances, verbs, the verbs related to the senses, these verbs connected to processes like become, and passive state verbs, like, you know, these verbs like lie, and you have to say lie down, stay calm.
Yeah.
Okay? And I will read one more sentence. Don't worry, because one more sentence today, because at the same time I'm like sending you all this information and then you need to process it, put it into practice, etc. Okay? It's not that I'm like closing the topic and if you didn't understand it today, that's it. On the contrary, this is something that we're going to continue discussing until the last class, where we are going to be adding more things. But what the classification of the verb, we will always discuss. So don't worry if you have doubts, if you are still not, this is the beginning, okay? But it is something that you need to start thinking about in every sentence that you read, okay? To try to understand what type of verb it is. In the sentence, I gave you a hug. I gave you a hug. What is the verb?
Okay.
Okay. Is there a person or a thing affected by the action?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
You.
Yes.
You.
What is the thing affected by the action?
A direct
A hug.
object.
The hug. Very good. Yes, yes.
Ah, the hug.
The hug. Yes. And the hug, that is the thing affected by the action, is called the direct object. Yes, very good. And then there is a person affected by the action.
You.
You. Very good.
It's an indirect object.
That is the indirect object, exactly. Yes, Santiago there. Yes, Santiago. So we have a direct object and an indirect object. So what type of verb is this?
Transitive.
Not just transitive, because we have two objects.
Be transitive.
Very
Or
good.
bitransitive.
Ditransitive or bitransitive. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And of complete predication, because we have no complement. With two objects, we have enough. Yes. Bitransitive verbs are always of complete predication. You don't have bitransitive verbs of incomplete. No. Bitransitive verbs are always of complete predication. Okay? Well, we have 3 more minutes, and in these 3 more minutes, I want to do in the writing, because there's going to be a forum with some brainstorming activities, but the first brainstorming activity we are going to do now, yes, I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to share with you some music, and what I want you to do is to close your eyes and try to, maybe, I don't know, if you want to write down or at least think, and then, I mean, think of what landscape you imagine, what time you imagine. If you imagine people, yes, what the music you will hear makes you think of, okay?
Okay.
So wait a second. There you go. Okay. Okay. That's kind of weird, right? I don't know if you had ever heard any that type of music before. The idea is that sometimes when you need to write a story, you have to look for inspiration, and music, especially something that you are not used to, can be a great source of inspiration. Okay, to imagine, I don't know what you imagined about this. I'm going to share a video and then write a question in the forum, and then we are going to do other brainstorming activities. Okay?
Interesting way to put it.
Yes, that was the idea. So I'll be reading you in the forums, okay? And see you next week.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, Santiago, yes, it's perfect for meditation.
It's
Well,
like a war match and a heavy army in the valley moving towards the battle, self-esteem on the
Exactly.
rise.